Welcome back. I'm currently standing on a bridge right above a waterfall. Yeah, I know. Another waterfall. Well, what can I say? It's fall. Waterfalls work really well with autumn colors. There's no mountains around here, and I haven't been to a beach in a while, so this is what we're working with. We have lots of waterfalls around here and nice autumn colors today. So I was planning on going down to the waterfall and making that the main point of this, which still is the plan. But I got distracted because on the bridge I'm standing on, there's some really nice yellow leaves sort of surrounded by dark browns and greens, and the light is just hitting the yellow leaves. So I think it makes a really interesting composition. And the way I have it framed up, there are some brown leaves in the foreground that aren't in focus in the image. And then the main pop of color is the trees in the background. And then all the dark tones and colors and textures around the tree, although it is quite cluttered and there's lots of things going on interfering with the composition, I think that it still works. There's nice framing with the subjects in the foreground, and then the colors, there's nice contrast, and for the first image, yeah, I'm super happy with it. It's also worth noting, my car is right there. So I don't have very far to go today. There's not much of a hike associated with this, which is good because the sun is going to be setting very soon, and forests in a valley don't do well when the sun's setting. But hopefully there's a little bit of light, and hopefully the waterfall offers enough interesting subject that the lighting won't make that much of a difference. I've reached the falls now. I mean, sorry, that was dramatic. It took no effort at all. I have reached the falls, however, and they're very nice. Look at them. Unfortunately, everything's in shadows down here, which not that big of a deal, I don't think. There won't be any weird harsh shadows or harsh light. So as long as I can get a wicked composition, I'm quite confident these images will turn out really nice. As you may have noticed, I'm going pretty lightweight today. I just have this little camera, which doesn't really have much weight, and then my camera with the tripod. And I left my bag in the car because I don't think I'm gonna need anything in the bag. And even if I do, it's so close I can get there in 2 seconds. So I figured, why bring everything if I don't need it? I might start going more lightweight for some more bigger hikes too. I mean, it might make a difference. It might be better for my back. I might be more comfortable. And if I'm more comfortable, maybe I'll take some better images. I have my first composition with the waterfall lined up, and I'm sort of on this little plateau that's a little ways away from the falls and probably 15 feet above it. But it gives a nice vantage point. And I'm just trying to frame it up so I'm shooting between two trees that hopefully won't have too much interference with the frame. And waterfalls coming down from the top left-hand corner, coming down to dead center in the frame. And then there's an interesting patch of leaves in the pool in the bottom of the waterfall. And yeah, compositionally, I think it's quite nice. I'll probably crop it, maybe even a square. And I'm shooting at just over 3/4 of a second, f13 ISO 160. 2-second shutter release, and yeah, super pleased with how this one's turning out. Prior to me capturing that image, I saw that little pool at the base of the waterfall that's kind of trapping these leaves, and I thought that from here would be a nice image, and it is, so I captured the image. But even before I took this first image, I thought about the image I could capture from down below, closer to the falls, where I'll head to now. But I'm just curious if anyone who takes pictures themselves, if you do the same thing, and if you see other compositions while you're taking composition, do you still take both compositions, or do you think of one that's best in your head and stick with it, and then forego taking the second one that you may never look at again, or that you deem less desirable than the previous? I'm really curious. Oh wow, that is pretty. The falls are actually bigger than I expected. The falls actually have an extra little section, just right there, that I couldn't see from my previous vantage point. So that's cool, I'm already excited I came down a bit farther. And now I should be able to get some more interesting foreground subjects with all these boulders. And then the leaf pool is right there. So This is nice. So this waterfall is obviously gorgeous, and having just wandered around down here for a few minutes, I've come to the conclusion that I want three things in my composition from down here. The first being this pile of leaves as some kind of a foreground element, simply because it's autumn, there's lovely colors, but unfortunately, not really here. Sometimes you have nice golden birches or maples that overhang over the falls, and that gives a little pop of color, but not so much here, which is okay. I'll just try and incorporate them differently. The second thing I want to incorporate into the image is that tiny little S pattern that you can see at the very beginning of the falls, at the top, at the apex. And then the third, sort of to balance out, ooh, I almost just fell in the stream. Balance out the presence of those yellow leaves in the foreground. I need something else on the opposite side of the frame. So whether that's this tree branch or one of these rock piles here, I'm not sure yet. But that's my thought process behind the next image that I haven't taken yet. So I've found that composition I was just mentioning. I have set up my tripod right there. Not a bad spot, eh? And what I've done, as I mentioned, was I wanted to incorporate this pile of leaves and obviously the waterfall, but that kind of made the frame kind of unbalanced because there's a lot of activity on the left-hand side. So it's not perfect, but I've found one that I'm happy with. And it incorporates the log, which is easy enough because it's hard to actually get that out of the frame. And then this dark boulder, and then what I actually think makes a big difference is this boulder here, which just pops into my composition a little bit, and I think it lends itself to just balancing out the frame. I don't have much to say. It's a nice picture, and I'm enjoying the excuse to be outside. And without a backpack, it's nice. I can just run around freely. It'll be impossible to tell, but this water is actually super deep right here. You could easily just pop off there. Be a nice place for a swim. I'm trying to talk myself out of not going in. I'm not going to, but I'd love to do it. I digress. There is another image to be had from right here, which is how I noticed the water was so nice and deep. And it looks inviting even when you're hot, but I went in a different waterfall 2 weeks ago. That was cold enough. I can only imagine how cold it is now. I've gotten way too bold and brave recently. 1 year ago, Tim, before I started making these videos, would never be holding my camera on my tripod like this, let alone doing it over open water. I'm not saying that I like that I do it, and I'm certainly not suggesting anyone else do it, but it makes transporting things a lot easier. That's for sure. I've recently put the spikes on the base of my tripod instead of the rubber feet, and I'd really like to have the rubber feet right now. Spikes and slippery wet rocks don't seem to be the best mix. So the image I'm working with now, I apologize if the waterfall is loud. I'm trying to figure out ways to reduce the noise of the waterfalls, but hopefully it's all right. There's two leaves that I'm really interested in. They're both just outside the main falls, and there's a little trickle of water running down, and it's almost as if the water is dripping from one leaf to the next. So that's like my idea behind this image, and to get it right, I'm trying to find the right shutter speed so that there's enough motion in the water that you can sort of see the connection between the two leaves, but not that there's too much, and then everything becomes one. I want to still be able to distinctly pick out that small stream of water. And at about 1/3 of a second, f9, ISO 160, that seems to give me the right balance of exposure to get the image I'm happy with. You know how I said I was traveling light and I wouldn't need anything? Well, typically that's correct. I don't normally go through more than one battery on my Fuji camera when I'm out. But, you know, this battery wasn't fully charged because I was out taking photos of the Atlas C3 Comet and I didn't recharge the batteries. So I think I only have time for one more composition before my camera dies. And what I'm gonna do is take an image of the falls, and you can just see the bridge that I was on earlier. And I think it's neat because it sort of melds nature and human activity and our interaction. So it could be nice if I can frame a composition that works. And if you're interested on seeing any of the images I took of the comet, if you stay to the end, I'll share a little time lapse I made because I didn't film anything, so there won't be a video, but I may as well share what I created. So I'll put that at the end of this video. Yeah, this image is not going to be as nice as I had hoped it would be, but I still think it's worth capturing. It requires lots of dynamic range, which I think I can figure out either in post or just getting the correct exposure. But I think the main issue is that there's just too much going on. There's no clear sight line to the bridge, although you can see it like with my eyes, it's really clear. But in the image, I'm worried that it'll get a little bit washed out just by all the trees and shrubs sort of blocking it between the falls and the bridge. But I have a composition framed up and I'm going in a portrait orientation, similar camera settings as all my other ones, just because I want a little bit of motion in the water. I have a tripod, so the longer shutter speeds are no issue. And it's getting dark, so I need those longer exposures anyway. Well, if you can't tell, the sun's gone down. My camera battery died, and I think I've about outstayed my welcome here at the waterfall. So, main takeaway from this video. Let's see. Travel light, but bring spare camera batteries, if you have any. And thanks for staying to the end of this video. Let me know which image your favorite was. And if you stayed this long, you're great, so you deserve a bonus reward. I'll share the images of the comet I captured the other night. It's a really interesting comet. I didn't catch it at its peak, but when it was close to Earth, it was one of the brightest comets I think ever observed in recorded history. When I took the images, unfortunately, it wasn't that bright anymore, but I think it still turned out quite nice. So thanks for watching, and till next time.